Hey, I'm Tom. Welcome at this new session of the IT Conversations, where we will highlight day one of VMworld keynote sessions. I have a special guest today, and that is Frederiek van Hoornick from VMware. Frederiek, welcome.
Hey, Tom. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I watched the keynote with Sanjay and with Pat with a lot of enthusiasm. They have talked about the digital foundation that VMware is helping customers with. The digital workspace has a very special place in that digital foundation, doesn't it?
Yes, it has. And it was amazing to see yesterday because I saw Pat really up and close and personal. It was the first time that I ever saw him in HD. So that was really amazing. And indeed, that digital workspace is really a part of that digital foundation. And I was really amazed to see that it was a part of that puzzle. Because if you see that total puzzle, app modernization, multi-cloud, the security part, it's in there. And why is it in there? Because we're in a really strange time somewhere. We're in unprecedented times where we see a transformation of a workforce in like overnight. So, and that's what Pat was trying to mention and saying, hey, this is really important. We are helping organizations with that digital foundation, but also with that digital workspace and helping organizations transform that workspace.
Yeah, these are unprecedented times. Since the corona outbreak, I mean, the world turns in the other direction, it seems, right? So the impression I have is that a lot of companies are being forced by the circumstances, to allow their workforce to work remotely, to work in a more flexible way. Is that also what you notice when talking to customers? Has the digital workspace become more strategic topic for customers also?
Yes, indeed. It's in almost all customer conversations that I have today, it's almost the first question. How did you cope with the last 6 months? How did you solve that? And a lot of things that also came into the general session. At a certain moment, he talked about the VPN access and so on. Well, a lot of organizations try that to solve that in that kind of way, but there are other possibilities. And in the general session, he talked about the future-ready workforce. Yeah. He talked about that Workspace ONE story around how can we help that endpoint management, but also how can we access all those applications in a safe kind of way with that secure access service edge, for example, and also with everything that we do around Carbon Black and adding that security layer. Because if you place all those people at home, they're all separately. You cannot control everything that they do at home. So you need to be aware that we need extra security layers or extra security, and that's that intrinsic security with a zero trust approach.
Yeah. And some companies were able to make that swap to allow their workforce to work remotely pretty easily. Others struggled a lot in doing so. I heard an example of one particular customer yesterday that managed to swap really fast in just a matter of days, if I'm not mistaken. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about that example?
Thales is a multinational group. It's a French group, and they make electrical designs and so on, and they help Air Force, defense, and so on. And they have an 80,000 employee workforce, and they need to transform also. So that is what they did. They helped, we helped that organization with transforming all of those employees. For example, we can help them pushing a mental health app, because mental health in these days is also really important. So we help them in pushing that app to all of those employees, and they can do surveys and so on for those employees now.
Yeah. After the keynote, I have watched the showcase with Shankar Iyer, who opened the showcase, but then Sean Bass, who, let's admit, was the big star of the showcase, really making it more tangible. They were talking about the future-ready workforce, and if you look around us, I mean, the younger generations have completely different expectations of the tools they would get to be successful in their job than generations like mine, for example. And in order to attract new talent, companies also need to offer this new set of tools. And I think Sean positioned this on three specific pillars.
Yeah.
Employee engagement, IT modernization, and intrinsic security. Yeah. Let's maybe start with the employee engagement. What would you like to say about that?
Well, I'll start with the future-ready workforce, because you had a really nice mention of that part. I had a discussion with my son. It was a couple of months ago, and we were playing a game, and we sometimes do that, and we make hand gestures. And I say, hey, can you make a hand gesture of a gun? And he does like this, of course, like any child would do. He's 8 years old. And then I said, can you make a hand gesture of a bird? And he did like this, and glasses, and he did like this. So he had a lot of hand gestures that are normal. And at a certain moment I was starting to think about my job and what kind of hand gestures do you have there. And at a certain moment I said, hey, can you make a hand gesture of a phone? And if I would ask us, that's maybe, we would do like this, like normal. But he did like this. So he's 8 years old, and that's the future-ready workforce that is coming in 10 or 12 years, because he has the tools already available, and these will be the normal tools in 10, 12 years old, and maybe there will already be something new. So employee engagements maybe already is starting now in 10 years for that little person. So we need to think about employee engagement. How do we engage those employees? And that's coming back to those three pillars. Employee engagement starting even before somebody is hired. If I remember the time that I started at VMware, I received my laptop, I could access almost everything immediately from day one. But what if I could access it before day one? If I accept my offer, for example, via my smartphone or via an email. And then I can order my laptop via Intelligent Hub. And if I can already read my benefits. So before somebody started at VMware, you could already have a lot of benefits in that Intelligent Hub. And then day one arrives, and then he will receive the full digital workspace, and he can access any type of application that he needs to do his job. So that employee engagement is really important from day one from day 0 to day 1 to day 2, and joiners, mover, leavers concept, I would say. Then the second pillar maybe, and I will go through that one, is IT modernization. If we look at that, it's always focused on one side, the employee. Let's look at Windows 10, macOS. It's modernizing how they use those tools. We are able to send a laptop to somebody's home, and that's a big benefit in those kind of days. If we look at that story from our point of view, it's really easy if you receive that laptop, but also from an IT operational point of view, it's really easy to send that laptop and do not need to manage that laptop in the office anymore. Otherwise, you need to script, to do a lot of things. It's not a nice thing to do. I think you can remember we're from the same era, I would say, about. And then the last part is security. And security, I think, is a key cornerstone. Back to Pat's vision, it was the puzzle pieces. The security was on top and in the bottom. Means that it needs to be everywhere. You need to think about security like it's an everyday thing. You need to think about security every time.
VMware calls it intrinsic security these days, and I also heard the term zero trust security popping by.
And it's not, for me, it's not really the same. So you have a zero trust approach. That's already days old, I would say. It's even Google has an approach to that. Not even Google, but Google has an approach to that. And then you have the intrinsic security, and that is the bolted on. It's really it's saying, hey, I put it in my product, and it's always there. And you need to think about those kind of solutions. So. And it adds to having a zero trust approach. And a zero trust approach is having a layered approach from user and identity to unified endpoint management and security on that layer, intelligence to make sure that you have vulnerability checks and automation on that layer, and then carbon black for the next gen AV and so on.
Yeah. So offering people, flexible work conditions, remote work conditions require also to think a lot about security. VMware has this all covered pretty well. Something completely different. Pat has always been a very, very strong advocate about using technology as a force for good. And I know it's a topic that you also have very dear to your heart. You know, what would you like to say about that?
Well, if we look at an organization, and that's why I'm quite fond of VMware in general, they have a mission statement. Yeah. And it's not selling software, because that's that monetizes everything. That's normal. We are not the organization that doesn't want to earn money, but we're also there, and that mission statement is a force for good. And if you look, for example, at the general session, there was an example of Feeding America, where we are the underlayer. We're not Feeding America in general, but we're the underlayer of technology that helps that organization to achieve his goals. And that's why there's a force of good. For example, we have another initiative that's carbon neutral. VMware tries to be carbon neutral in everything that they do, but they also, for example, do executive briefings where we have a lot of customers that are joined together. And for every customer that joins an executive briefing, we plant a tree. So those kind of things, that's something that not a lot of people know, but we really try to do good for the world in general.
Yeah. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the world of digital workspaces. What are other digital workspaces sessions or into computing sessions that you are really looking forward to in this VMworld 2020?
Well, I'm in the ITQ office, and I was looking at certain sessions, and of course I was looking for the last day of course. And one of those sessions was a NerdFest VDI demo by one of your nerds.
One of my colleagues is the Uber nerd of VDI. Yeah, that's true.
And it's about AI, machine learning, deep learning, all of those things together with GPU, and having that total story and how can you use it and how will you do certain things with that technology. That's an amazing session. It's with Johan. Go there and check it out. If you want to know the bits and bytes, go to that session. A couple of other sessions. I'm quite fond of Brian Madden, and that's industry-wide, before Citrix, but now VMware guru, I would say. He has two sessions, one together with Sean Bass, and that's ask the questions to the CTO, and you can ask any type of question to Sean Bass and Brian Madden. So go ahead and ask them questions, the tough questions. Call the elephant in the room, I would say, and ask questions about everything.
Yeah. Amazing that that's possible.
Yeah. And then a last session is also with Brian Madden, and that's regarding, he had a lot of customer meetings. And the same like my customer meetings it's remote work. And he had customer meetings around what he learned about those first 50 meetings about the VDI admin. How did his job change? Yeah. And that is a really interesting session to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. So Frederiek, any last call to actions for our viewers?
Yeah, maybe two call to actions. First of all, there are a lot of sessions, on-demand sessions that you can follow on VMworld. So just register today and follow those sessions afterwards. That would be a really amazing thing to do. And the second one is I want to summarize everything in one sentence, and that's work as one with Workspace ONE.
What a beautiful catchphrase to end this interview with. My call to action would be, if you haven't done so yet, register to the ITQ YouTube channel to watch this IT Conversations again, but also all the other ones. And remember, work as one with Workspace ONE.